New South Wales police fear there could be increased violence and revenge attacks following the shooting of a Comanchero bikie heavyweight and his brother in Sydney's West on Tuesday night. Police say community football matches in Western Sydney could be called off this weekend over concerns of an outbreak in gang violence. The Penrith District Junior Football Club issued a letter to members saying matches could be cancelled if safety is compromised after a warning people armed with weapons could descend upon games. Information gathered by police has found gang violence has impacted several sporting matches in recent months. Clubs are being urged to contact police if they are aware of conversations or any kind of talk about any kind of violence. Joining us live now is the New South Wales Opposition Leader, Chris Minns. Chris, good to see you. Thanks for your time this morning. We will start there. What do you make of those warnings? Are they legitimate? And what do you make of the police response so far?
Yeah, obviously they're very concerning, Peter, and the police are obviously on the job, but they can only work with what they've been given by the New South Wales government. They're on a promise of 1,500 new officers for the New South Wales Police Force. We're 650 officers short so far, and we're only months out from the next state election. So I'm not sure whether COVID has dented the ability of recruitment efforts for New South Wales Police, but that's obviously an urgent priority because resourcing when it comes to tackling gang violence is extremely important. And I don't want to see a situation where an innocent bystander is hit by a stray bullet with these thugs and gang members shooting with, it seems, impunity in parts of Western Sydney.
OK, so what would you do about those shortfalls?
But we need to make sure that that recruitment hits its target, that those new police are operational, and in those areas that require extra police presence, there's the Task Force Raptor, which is of course tasked with handling gang violence in Sydney. It needs to be an urgent priority. Now, I'm not saying that the New South Wales government isn't focused on it, but we need to make sure that from the government point of view, the resourcing and the recruits are on the streets battling this gang violence. OK. Chris,
you've been strong on tolling. Sydney-siders feeling it everywhere, right across the city. Now, a leaked government report shows a plan to introduce distance-based tolls across the city. This is a system that has been used in other parts of the world. Why shouldn't that be explored here?
Because we are already the most tolled city on the face of the earth. We have a 100% privately owned toll road monopoly in Sydney. In addition to distance-based tolling, the report also calls for a congestion tax. In London, they've got a congestion tax, 25 kilometres around the CBD, and it's a $25 fee to get into it. Now, the reason we don't support it is because we think it's unfair to those communities in Western Sydney that, of course, have to travel extra distances. They shouldn't be penalised because successive governments haven't built public transport within their communities, and they're forced to use motorways to get to and from work and see their families. It's having a huge hit on the family back pocket, right when many families obviously can't afford to pay it.
Yeah, so as more and more people take up electric cars, though, there will be a loss in fuel excise. How would you make up that shortfall?
Yeah, look, in New South Wales, legislation has been moved by the New South Wales government for a road user charge. It's due to come in 2027, so as to not depress the electric vehicle market in New South Wales. We think that that was appropriate. But, I mean, the real issue here, Peter, is that the New South Wales government pursued privatisation of the toll road network, and as a result, some families are paying between $5,000 and $6,000 a year in tolls. Now, this is an issue that's not felt as acutely in Queensland or in Victoria. New South Wales is the most tolled city on the face of the earth. Several months ago, they had the full privatisation of it. They were warned that this would lead to unfair cost increases on motorists. They went ahead regardless, and now we're in this situation.
Sure. Has this horse bolted, though? I mean, if you win next year, what can you do about it? Buy those companies back?
No, that would be just too expensive from the perspective of the New South Wales taxpayer. Yeah. Obviously, we can't fix the mess that we're in 1 year, but we are working diligently to work out a plan to reduce the cost of living on families, in particular in relation to tolls, and we're making headway in relation to that. But the most important thing, I think, is to snap this ideology from the New South Wales government that privatisation leads to lower prices. We're now in a situation where Dominic Perrottet has to go and renegotiate with the company that he's just sold WestConnex to. So obviously the situation for motorists is getting out of hand. and it's burning a hole in the back pocket of tens of thousands of families that live west of Parramatta.
Just on the congestion tax in the CBD at the moment, I lived in London for a while and worked with this and saw that it worked. It moved more people to bikes, etc. Is there any merit in it at all, even if you narrow the size of the congestion tax to be in the city, to clear out the cars, maybe force people onto bikes or take cabs, etc.? Would that have any merit in your opinion if you just narrowed the size?
Look, I think there's a couple of things to take into consideration here, which I don't think the department's looked at. First of all, business and workers have cleared out of the CBD over the last 2 years, and many businesses are telling me for some of their staff it's permanent. So there's an acute effort from governments around the world, but particularly in Australia, to get people back into the CBD. This will severely hit that as an effort. The second point is that I don't think Transport understands that the tolls that motorists in Sydney pay already is causing a depressing effect on people coming to the city. In other words, they're already paying a congestion tax. It's a secret tax, it's a toll, and it comes right out of the pockets of families right across Sydney. Many of them can't afford to use it. I should say this, it goes up at 4% each year, every year, for 20 years, except if inflation's higher than 4%, and then guess what? The toll rises higher than that.
Okay, just a final one here, Chris, on the federal election. If Anthony Albanese wins, do you see that as a positive or a negative for you leading into next year? Negative being that would mean near total Labor governments around the country, and maybe voters wouldn't like that.
Look, I think it's a positive for the country. We've had 8-9 years of a federal Labor government, 11 years of a federal Liberal government, 11 years of a state Liberal national government, and not many people feel that they've fixed the joint. So I think a change is required. And look, in New South Wales for the last decade, we've had political parties of the same persuasion at a state and federal level. So that, I think, indicates to me that voters are pretty discerning about state and federal issues. And we'll sink or swim based on our policies and our messaging heading into the election in March 2023.
Okay, well, you may be onto a winner with tolls there, no doubt. Chris Minns, thank you. We'll talk to you soon.